Hi, welcome to Ladies Leap Podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking to Vicki Gold. She's a retired physical therapist. She's a transformational speaker and the founder of Thera-Fitness. And she's a proud 80-year-old author of her book, ABC Mind Body System in Aging Safely, Wisely, and Well. And that's available right now. We're going to discuss everything that's in her book and about her life, which is fascinating, and much, much more. So enjoy the wonderful discussion with Vicki Gold. Welcome to the empowering world of Ladies Who Leap podcast, where brave souls share their remarkable journeys of venturing beyond their comfort zones to craft lives filled with passion and purpose. Tune in to hear the awe-inspiring tales of individuals who dared to defy their fears and embrace the unknown, paving the way for a future they truly adore. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Hi, welcome to Ladies Who Leap. I am welcoming Vicki Gold today. She is an author and a retired physical therapist who's proud to say she turned 80 in September of 2024. Yeah, it doesn't look it. So those of you that can't see, you'll notice that. Vicki is a perpetual student of personal growth and transformation and is a graduate of many trainings through Landmark Worldwide. She has completed a book that is meant to educate, empower, and inspire people to age safely, wisely, and well. And it is a movement and mindset guide for older adults, however, is relevant to people of all ages. The book comprises of the many tips, tricks, strategies, and skills Vicki gathered over her many years as a therapist and as a woman. It also has several collaborators from specialties like fall prevention, aging in place, nutrition, etc. Vicki's mission now is to encourage listeners to learn their ABCs in order to look, feel, and function optimally at every age. And we'll learn more about what those ABCs are. We'll get to that. So stay tuned. Welcome, Vicki.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I'm very excited to be here and so happy to be with you.
Thank you. I want to let everyone, again, listening know you don't look your age, you don't act your age. So let's learn how to stay young in our mind and body from someone who's actually walking the talk, as they say. Your journey to being a physical therapist is very touching when we first spoke. Can you explain how you started that journey?
Sure. So essentially, it probably started with the birth of my brother, who was 6 years younger than me. He actually passed in 2020 at almost age 70, which was remarkable for somebody with the extent of mental and physical disability that Lonnie had. His name was Lonnie. So at age 6 or 7, I'm already becoming sensitized to people who are somehow other, somehow challenged, shall we say. And then the next part of my journey was when I was 10, and a very dear friend of mine, a schoolmate, was one of the last victims of polio. She had not gotten the vaccine that many of us had gotten already. And Joyce became quadriplegic because of polio and was pretty much dependent on a respirator for the extent of her life. And then the final coup de grace, if you will, was when I was at a camp, and my camp was visited by a camp of handicapped children, and I was totally at ease with them. I mean, after all, I had been with Joyce, taking her around on her wheelchair. I had my brother, and one of the camp counselors said to me, "Vicki, what are you planning to do when you grow up?" And they always ask that. And somewhere I had gotten the idea of being a social worker, although I had no idea really what they did. I think I thought I was going to be planning parties or something. I really had no idea. And they were the ones who said, well, you really ought to consider becoming a physical therapist. And so at age 15, the decision was made, and I never looked back. So that's it in a nutshell, Lisa.
Well, I'll tell you, I always tell people to look back in your childhood. If you don't know what your purpose and passion is, to see what experiences you had. And if someone older said to you, hey, you would be really good at this, you literally lived that experience about becoming a physical therapist.
Right. And I'm also aware, through my years of needing therapy to overcome, certain challenges, that at least for me, I know it was about trying to fix things that I couldn't fix. I mean, I know we didn't say that before, but the fact that I couldn't fix my brother, I couldn't fix Joyce, physical therapy became a very concrete way that I could put my hands on somebody and really transform or help them transform how they were moving through life.
Yeah, in fact, physical therapists are, I kind of view them in the same category as nurses and teachers, the caregivers, the giving, the compassion, the empathy.
Mhm.
And I can just knowing you in this short time know that that's a lot of probably how you proceeded with your physical therapy. And you did it for many, many years.
In fact, the only reason that I became retired, essentially, it was retired from what we call hands-on physical therapy. And that's because my New York, which is where I was from for much of my life, my New York physical therapy license was expiring at the end of the same month that my husband and I retired here to North Carolina, and there was not a reciprocity available. And so it was almost a forced retirement. And the fact that my hands were getting a little tired from all the years of very significant hands-on work.
Yeah, and I say that like with somebody who's laid off, it's the universe telling you, okay, this is your next chapter in life. You've done very well. You've helped a lot of people. Now let's move on to the next chapter. Which
Right.
is what I was going to ask is that your first leap was really to get move physically with your husband, and that was when you decided to write a book. Well, actually, let me step even before that. You delved into the work of mind-body approaches to well-being. That was a bit of a different approach to you, including that different, like the landmark training. Can you explain why you were drawn to that in life?
Well, first of all, I've always loved movement. I was born, I don't know if I'd mentioned, but I was born in Arizona, and I was essentially a monkey from childhood. There wasn't a tree that was around that I didn't love to climb. So movement was always a part of my life. And then wherever I was, opportunities presented themselves for doing things like yoga, and again, uh, I loved what was a new experience of the mind body working together. By chance, when I was living in California for a while, I've been around. When I was living in California for a while, I wound up exercising at a Pilates studio, and that's where my really strong consciousness about the role of core conditioning was established. So there's yoga, and I'm becoming aware of this mind body integration with breathing, Pilates, core conditioning, and other opportunities. I had a very dear friend who was not only a voice instructor, but she was a certified Alexander technique practitioner. And for those who don't know about Alexander technique, it was based on this gentleman named Alexander. I think it was back in the 1800s. And he was an orator. And he noticed that after speaking for a while, he would lose his voice. So he went on to study how he was using his body as he spoke. And I believe he may have noticed that as he spoke, and this was something my mother actually did, there was this tendency to tighten up around the neck and shoulders. So the whole Alexander technique, what he created was uh, an ability. He would just touch people in a way that they became aware of where they might be holding tension, muscle contraction that really had nothing to do with the function they were trying to perform. So when you're using your voice, for example, there's really no reason for things to be tightened up around the neck and the shoulders. and of course the whole body. So it's a system that is truly exquisite when it comes to helping people move in a way that is most efficient. Uh, that I would say that in a nutshell. And not finally, but one of the other really impactful trainings that I was exposed to was created by a gentleman whose name was Moshe Feldenkrais. A lot of people may have heard of the Feldenkrais technique. And I would say his focus was more on helping people become aware of, and then using his techniques to break habitual patterns of movement. So if you think about it, every time you turn your head, let's say, to a side, your eyes go the same way. Every time you go to maybe raise your arm or something, your shoulder girdle may work in the same way. So there were habitual patterns of movement. His strategy was to help people move in ways that were freer. And then eventually what happened is I said, well, I've got all this experience now behind me, the physical therapy and Moshe and Alexander and yoga. And I said, I need to make it simple for the average person who doesn't do all these things. How do I make those available to the average person? And that's where my ABC mind body system evolved from.
Oh my gosh, because I know that you started writing, you decided to write the book when you physically moved. So from what you're saying earlier, you kind of were a forced retirement from physical therapy, and then this probably came into your mind. How could you share this information easily? And because most of us aren't going to go through all of this training and get into in depth, but to be able to take that and translate it in a way that everybody can understand and actually use it in their life for healthy aging. I commend you for that. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. So now let's find out what the ABCs mean and how to learn their ABCs.
Okay, so the ABCs became the ABCs of mind body fitness, because we're going to hear of a second set of ABCs also. They became alignment, which is all about your posture, and every element of my ABC system is formatted in the way of, well, what is it? Why is it important? And probably most importantly for listeners or viewers is, how do you achieve it? So the A is alignment, good posture, and you can think about, why is it important? Well, first of all, I think we look better when we're exhibiting better posture, but also our body functions better. And one of my favorite stories about this is about a patient that I had sitting in my waiting room a little bit early, about 15 minutes early for an appointment, and she was slouched in the waiting room chair. And I asked her what her problem was, and here she is, and I'm going to demonstrate. She's slouched in the waiting room chair, and she tries to raise her arm up, and she's wincing, and she says, I can't raise my arm. And since she was early, I said, look, while you're waiting for me, let me sit you up straighter in your chair. I put a little support behind her back, so her postural alignment, her spinal alignment was now being supported. I rested her arms on the armrest of her chair. And I said, just do some relaxation breathing, and I'll come back to get you in about 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, I came back, and for some reason, I again asked her, tell me what your problem is. I don't know why I did that, but I did. And she said, I can't. And the arm went straight up. That's not always going to happen, because there could be circumstances that are physically limiting. But in her case, it was strictly her postural alignment that directly impacted how her shoulders functioned.
Yes.
And it also, if you try this yourself, you'll notice that your ability to turn your head side to side is impacted by your postural alignment. So there are the two reasons right off the bat why alignment, the A, is important. Now, how do you achieve it? in the old days, I think we all remember how we were taught chin, or as you get older, chins in, chest out, shoulders back, stomach in, and you'd got this really rigid posture. I've taken to using more mental imagery and shall we say suggestions. So if you want to close your eyes, those of you who are listening or watching, and just try doing what I'm going to suggest. So I'd like you to think lengthen and see, let your body respond to it if it does. Think open. And as you think open, I want you to be aware of any possible tension around your neck and shoulders releasing. And as you do that, you may notice that your shoulders drop down and back a little bit. One of the ladies in a presentation I did said, gee, I feel as if I want to make, I'm making, what did she say? She said, I'm making more space in my chest. So I've added that suggestion. Lengthen, open, shoulders drop down and back, make space in your chest, let your chin tuck and your head ride back on your trunk. And lastly, imagine the crown of your head rising towards the ceiling. So without doing anything else but just allowing your body to respond to these images, I find that most people go from whatever their comfort, maybe even slouched posture is, to a more erect posture. Of course, there are still things you want to do to strengthen those muscles, the core muscles that support this better alignment. That comes later in the book. We actually talk about some techniques that do not, by the way, do not include sit-ups. So for anybody who thinks that core conditioning includes sit-ups, please know they are poison, especially for those of us who have any degree of osteoporosis. And we can go into that if you want to.
No, but
However,
I will get the book so that I can better understand because that's a big deal. A lot of us at our age have at least some form of it. And one thing that was interesting about this whole posture thing, because I did what you said as you were saying it, and I really noticed it was much more natural because back when I was a kid, they had those bands, those things that you wore. My mom gave me one so that I would keep my shoulders back. And as I think it was about 15, maybe 10 years ago or so, I had a video of because a guy had a camera and it was from behind me. And I said, oh my back, oh my gosh, my back looked so slumped. That's when I really was like, it's not attractive. And especially as you get older, you see the people that are humped. You see how much that has an impact on you. So I love that A is a line. We got that one down. Okay,
right.
go to B, breathe, because I love breathing techniques.
I'm glad you added techniques because I love breathing. I mean, loving breathing is a good thing too. So what's different about what I'm recommending in breathing? First of all, we know it's something natural and automatic. You could go through your whole life and never think about your breathing, and you will breathe. What the ABC mind body system says, let's do some conscious breathing where you take control of the rate of your breathing, how fast are you breathing, how deep are you breathing, and so that's part one of breathing, is just becoming conscious of it, becoming aware that you can use it as a tool. It becomes a tool primarily for stress reduction, because most of you will know that if you're under stress, you may be holding your breath, you may be breathing more shallowly, you may be breathing higher up in your chest. So once you become conscious, you can say, oh, let me slow my breathing down, let me deepen it. Um, and the other thing that I want to emphasize is I'd like you to concentrate on the exhalation part of your breathing. Because if you say breathe to most people, they will breathe in. I'm going to tell you, I want you to pay more attention to your slow, prolonged exhalations. Those are going to be your tool for stress reduction. Think of when you sigh, a sigh of relief. The other advantage of turning your attention to a slow, prolonged exhalation is that you are now clearing stale air that tends to sit in the corner of your lungs. We call it residual air in the physical therapy and medical world. You get rid of as much of that stale air that doesn't ordinarily come out with your regular breathing. And now what you've done is you've made more space in your lungs, whatever lung tissue you have, because you may have a condition where you have lost some lung tissue or it's been compromised. Now what you've done is you've made as much of that lung tissue available to the oxygenated air when you breathe in. So these are two significant advantages and importance of conscious breathing with slow, prolonged exhalations, stress reduction, and improved respiratory capacity.
Love it, love it, love it. And I can, as you're talking, I can see and hear that physical therapist in there. And then the C is center. So what is
Yes.
that?
So centering initially was strictly thinking about your mind and your body working together. And the question I ask at this point is, so how many times has any of you had an accident or an injury or made a mistake because your mind is one place, but your body is doing something else? I'm imagining every one of us is guilty on some level. So centering, that's the main focus of it. In the book, I also mentioned that there are two other meanings of centering. One is becoming aware of your center of gravity, which is usually when you're standing, usually an area below the belly button and behind the belly button. We don't have to go into that now. But learning to move from your center of gravity, which is something you see in Tai Chi, for example, is a way to move more efficiently. And then the third meaning of centering is being aware when you're carrying or moving a heavy object, or when I was a physical therapist or healthcare workers, when we had to help people move from one position to another, from a bed to a chair, etc., holding their center as close to our center as we could as we reposition them. But for our purposes, we're going to think of the mind-body connection and the technique, the strategy that came from Landmark. I always like to credit them when they enhance what I offer. And the strategy is start, act, stop. Many people think that they are more efficient and get more done when they multitask. And I think the research is showing that that's not, in fact, how we are most efficient. This strategy, start, but essentially what it says is any activity you're going to do, at some point you start the activity, then you do the activity, which could be as minor as washing a dish. For some reason, I always go to that example. You pick the dish up, you wash it, you put it in the dish drain, and that's your stop. So you start, act, stop. So now you may ask, well, what about in those larger projects, like when you're writing a book, Vicki? There you, with any larger project, you start whatever portion of it, whatever piece of the project you're going to work on, you do as much as you're going to do. There's your act. And at some point, you hit a stopping point for whatever reason, and you start, act, stop on your next activity. My day is a series of start, act, stop. It's automatic now. Which reminds me, Lisa, one of the points I like to make in the book is that everything that's presented is not meant to be done like 3 times a day, like when people go on exercise programs. Everything we do and everything I suggest, both mentally and physically, is meant to become part of how you move through your everyday life. And the last thing I'll say on that is that tagline, my company's tagline is transforming the ways you move through life, meaning how you move physically, because now you're more conscious of your postural alignment, your breathing, your way of attacking projects. And when we go to the mental ABCs, how you are thinking about things as you go through your day. So I know your work is about transformation, and that's where they combine so nicely.
Yeah, because you're taking the kind of stuff that I do with working with the unconscious mind and reframing your negative limited beliefs. You're actually including the whole body in that and physical with your physical therapy practice and history that you've had. I love it. I absolutely love it. Your book is positive. It's kind of hard to believe that you're 80. So for those of us that are not there yet and kind of have our own fears about it, really, and understand thinking, okay, at some point I'm not going to be able to do anything physically. What is it actually like to be 80 when you've been practicing your ABCs?
I think I'd like to talk about the ABCs of what I called personal growth and transformation,
Sure.
because I think those are equally important to maximizing how your body functions physically.
Yes, mind and
And
body connection is very strong. Thank you.
right. And this is where it ties together with your work. And again, I tried to put things in a simple ABC format, and those ABCs became attitudes, beliefs, and commitment. And essentially, what I say is that attitudes can be positive or negative. Some of the attitudes we have are very positive. They support us in having healthy relationships. They support us in doing things that enhance our physical, mental health. However, attitudes can be changed, especially if you've got a negative attitude about something, or you're having a bad day and you recognize, oh my God, I'm really being not nice today. You can often choose to change that, sometimes just by putting on makeup in the morning, or doing dressing a certain way. You can change your attitude. So there's the A. The B is not so easy to change, and those are beliefs. Those are usually very deeply held, very ingrained. And again, you can have very positive beliefs, like a belief in all people are good. If you are religious, in a loving God, in whatever. I'm sure, Lisa, you could probably come up with a lot
Yeah,
more.
that you love yourself, that you're happy, yes.
Yeah. And if you take the time to look at your beliefs, which often tie together with our self-talk, and that's another, we kind of go into that in the book. But if you take a look and you notice that you have some beliefs about being, let's say, an aging woman, maybe just about being a woman, there have been a lot of cultures where being an older woman is not necessarily supported. And if you're one of those people, or a man that's, been given certain beliefs that limit what you see possible in yourself, taking the time to identify and explore your beliefs, now you can move on. Now you can choose. And I think that's a really important word, is recognizing our power to choose how we're being, what we're thinking, what we're feeling in a certain circumstance. Lisa, I'm traveling right into your territory. and
Yeah.
and just to get to the C is, okay, now that you've made these observations and you've found that there may be some attitudes and beliefs that you want to keep, there are some you may want to change. Now you make a commitment and you take the actions to make the changes that you may want to make. Take it, Lisa.
Yeah, I was going to say you're so the B and the C really go right into because with the B you may need help. to change those beliefs. And that's where you can come to someone like myself who actually clears and releases, I call it baggage or bag of rocks that you have.
Right,
But
right,
for sure, in the C, when you say commit, basically you're talking about taking the action steps, which is something you need to do. It's not just magic to release that bag of rocks. Now you need to follow through, focus, maybe set some boundaries, right? And then have either manifest also your future, but really take the steps to do it, which is exactly as you're aging, right? If you have a belief that when you get to a certain age, you're not going to be able to walk, you're not going to be able to move, you're not going to be able to do something else, whatever it is, no, you can get rid of and release the negative limiting beliefs in your head about that. And that will have an effect and do the ABCs of align, breathe, and center. Then you can physically match up your new beliefs, the positive beliefs, with your physical body beliefs. Because
right.
changing the beliefs in your unconscious mind is going to have an effect on your body. That's a given. We all know that. But actually doing the physical work will make it so that you're, as you age, we will then follow in your footsteps as to how you are, what you are at 80. How does it feel to be 80?
Wait, I'm going to throw
Oh,
in
I'm
another.
going, just jumping ahead, huh?
Okay. And that's okay. I just, as you were speaking, I was just remembering one of the beliefs that my late father-in-law had when he really would have benefited by following through with what his physical therapist was recommending and what I wanted to support him in. And his comment to me, and he was 90 at the time, is, "You can't teach an old dog new tricks." Well, I went onto YouTube, and I don't know if the link in the book is still active, but if you go onto YouTube and you simply put in teaching an old dog new tricks, there's more than one video of an old dog being taught a new trick. So there's one belief that you can, throw out. And the other thing is, when I have worked with, shall we say, very senior or very frail people, and they think they have no potential, why should they work with me? It's amazing. If nothing else, just being able to be supported and sit a little straighter, even if it's in a wheelchair, just becoming conscious of their breathing and learning to breathe. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete. You can be of any age and any level of ability and benefit from learning your ABCs. Oh, and I wanted to get to this whole business of turning 80 because I know you're very curious about it. First of all, I was blessed with good genetics. I have to thank mom and dad for that. And I guess because of the therapies that I had over the years, all right, I did have therapy because of my work with Landmark. It really impacted my ability to not set limitations on myself. And I will tell you that as I approached my 80th birthday, which was last September, I found myself getting really excited. And now, actually being 80, there is a sense of freedom that is beyond anything that I personally experienced at any other stage of my life. I have whatever number of years ahead of me. I keep having this vision of at least 20, God willing, and the fact that any limitations that I might have thought about, like you're too old to do this, or you're not whatever enough to do this, they just kind of have melted away. And now it's just fun, explore, find your purpose. I must say that having a purpose, which for me is sharing this work and having the opportunities to interact with people like you, Lisa, there's just nothing more joyful. But it's based in having a purpose and a positive frame of mind, so that any of those limiting beliefs have been invited to just go away.
I like that. Invited to go away. Yeah. And the fact that you, I found this passion, wrote this book, speak about it, It's a way to kind of age gracefully. Anything that you can do from a natural type of way, breathing, aligning, centering your body, having a connection with and being aware of negative thoughts about yourself and clearing those and reframing those. All of that is aging
Hmm.
great. So you have a story for us about self-talk, Vicki. Why don't you?
I do, because self-talk is so related to what we were both talking about in terms of maybe counteracting negative beliefs. And this story is about a very senior lady who was brought into the physical therapy gym where I was working, happened to be at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles at that point. And this poor woman was already, before I even approached her, was already crying and screaming, I can't, I can't. We brought her into the parallel bars. I'm assuming everybody knows or has seen parallel bars in a physical therapy gym. And this woman was just hysterical, crying and screaming, I can't. And as physical therapists, as any type of therapist, we have all kinds of strategies to work with a person. We can be very loving, understanding, and patient. Or, I mean, there have been times where I've said to someone, oh, "Okay, we're gonna stand up and we're gonna do it right now." It depends. Different strategies work for different people. Well, none of my strategies was working with this poor woman. And finally, I said, "I give up. You win. I am not going to try to stand you anymore. I promise you, I'm going to let you go back to your room. However, I am going to ask you to say the words, I'll try. And then I promise I will let you go." And of course, she's still crying and screaming, I can't. And I kept repeating, I promise you, you say the words, I'll try, and I will not try to stand you up anymore. You will be free to go. And finally, you hear this little voice whisper, I'll try. Okay, I said, and I got ready to unlock her brakes and let her go. I was not going to destroy her trust in me. And I said to her, well, would you like to try? Shook her head, yes. Hands on the parallel bars. I barely helped her. The woman stood up, walked the full length of the parallel bars, turned around and walked all the way back, turned around and sat down. Every time I tell the story, now this was back in the late 1970s, the hair, I mean, I just get chills up and down, because if that doesn't tell you the power of our self-talk on how our body responds, not just our mind, but our whole body transformed. For those of you who are listening or watching, try it. If you're going through or having, one of those little, what was, I think was it President Nixon nattering nabobs or something, those negative whatevers chattering in your ear, just create another statement. It doesn't have to be true. These are mind games. I call them mind games, but you can transform how your body and how your mind respond to a situation just by you changing the words that you are saying to yourself. And I don't think I've ever said this before, but one of the things I've done, I had to do it with my parents once, and I've even done it with my husband. If there was a time that I needed to hear something said to me, I've actually scripted people. Would you please say this to me? I really need to hear it now.
I love that.
Yeah, so these are, Lisa, you mentioned tips, tricks, and strategies. These are not things you read in books, but somehow with our backgrounds, these ideas come and they can be really effective. So giving yourself suggestions, positive suggestions, can really be powerful and effective.
Yep. Yep. So we're getting to the point now where I have all my guests share their favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation. And
Oh, my mantra would be that I am open to love and life. So just to me, openness has been a significant word to me for very much of my life. Being open to learning, being open to maybe releasing negative things that have happened in my past, just being open and what's ideal, but being open to love. And that was actually a challenge for me at a time in my life, not because my parents didn't love me. That's a whole other program, why I might have had that attitude or feeling, and open to life. I mean, we are living life. So I guess that's my mantra, open to love and life.
Oh, I love it because you're definitely going through that in your life, open to new experiences. Yeah, everything. And the mind and body connection. I really appreciate you, Vicki. You've shared a lot of great tips, and the book has a lot more. So you want to be able to go get her aging
Uh,
safely, wisely, and well, a movement and mindset guide for older adults, but really for anybody, because you're never too young to start this. The earlier
right.
you start with all of these habits, the better your aging process will be as you get older. So, how can people learn more about you?
All right. It's very simple. They just need to go to my website, which is thera-fitness.com. So Thera is like in therapist, Thera, and then a hyphen, don't forget that, and then fitness.com. And if they go there, first of all, they'll learn a little bit more about me. There is a separate tab that is about the book. They will hear, if they choose to, they will hear an 8-minute audio intro that I do to the book, and they will be able to order the book from my website, either from Barnes and Noble or Amazon. And finally, if they go to my website and they contact me through my website, they get a free 2-page, actually, it's 9 mind body tips and tricks for relieving stress. So there's the motivation. It's really simple. Just go to my website and
I love it. I think I'm going to go there right after the call when we hang up here because it would be nice. It's just something that you can have handy to remind you what you can do to be able to have healthy aging.
yeah.
It's been a pleasure and just a real honor to have you on today. And my Ladies Who Leap is about leaping in life, but your leap really came as a whole experience of life and actually
Yeah.
leaping into being healthy as you age. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate you being on today.
I loved it. I loved it. And I look forward to maybe chatting again, Lisa.
Yes, for sure, for sure. There might be another book in your future, then you can come and talk about that too.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, either video or audio. And remember to subscribe, like, comment, because I want to keep doing this. And the more people that listen it means that I can keep doing this all over and over and over again to share these great tidbits of information from amazing women. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.